Ice Cube's Big Three is back for Season 2. For those of you who don't know, the Big Three is a professional 3-on-3 basketball league featuring former NBA stars like Amari Stoudemire, Nate Robinson, Chauncey Billups, Baron Davis, Carlos Boozer, Mike Bibby, Meta World Peace, and many, many more. The list goes on and on. Get your tickets for games at big3.com/tickets. That's big3.com/tickets, or tune in live every Friday night on Fox or FS1. That's right, this year the games are going to be on live, not tape delay. Big Three, we're changing the game. Welcome to another episode of the HoopsHype Podcast. My name is Alex Kennedy, and joining me today to break down the 2018 NBA Draft and pick some winners and losers, even though it's a bit early, is my HoopsHype colleague, Bryan Kalbrosky. Bryan, how you doing, buddy?
What's up? I'm here from Brooklyn. I actually do live here, so it's not exactly a work trip for me, but I had a lot of fun at the draft last night. And I'm looking forward to this new crop of players. I think there's a lot of really talented guys who can definitely make an impact in this league for a long time.
Yeah, it's always cool to see their hard work pay off. And these guys have made sacrifices and grinded for so long that it's really cool to see them be able to celebrate one night and, you know, have their dreams come true. So this was your first draft. You got to see it in person. What was it like for you? What were your favorite parts?
I think that the best part is obviously seeing just like how happy these guys are. It's really weird, you know, to see how much work they have to do even on draft night, how many obligations they have, how many people are just guiding them from point A to point B. It's a bit of a zoo, man, and they really make the NBA draft quite a production. I mean, this year they added the whole like Brooklyn Bridge homage and like that NBA court thing that they had with like the NBA Twitter social moment. And there's just so much going on, so many people trying to get in their ear. So many, you know, familiar faces, family, friends, agents, so many dudes that they'll just never see again. I remember I saw a pretty special moment where after Michael Porter Jr. fell a bunch of spots, David Robinson like chased him down and was yelling, Michael, and he wasn't turning around because I think he just thought it was somebody. He turns around, it's David Robinson. He pulled him aside, seemed to give him a hug, give him some words of encouragement. So there's so much chaos for these guys. So I think it's really interesting just to see, you know, firsthand how much they really experience on a night like that night.
Yeah, it is crazy. Dave Robinson also on the broadcast gave Lonnie Walker some encouragement because he fell, but he went to the Spurs, so obviously he could offer, you know, some guidance there and talk about the franchise a little bit, but also encourage him. So I think it's cool that Dave Robinson was doing that. Super nice guy on and off camera. He's one of those guys that's just, he lives up to the expectations. You know, everything you hope he's going to be, he is when you meet him. But yeah, it's crazy. You know, my first draft, I remember there's all these different stations that are throughout the arena. For people who don't know, it's basically the guys have to go do, you know, an NBA radio interview. Then they get pulled to another station where they do a trading card thing. There's another station where they, you know, do their first, you know, rookie photos. Like there's all these different things they're doing. So there's been times where I remember, you know, especially in the second round, whenever it's the first round, guys typically hear if they've been traded or if like a big move happened. But there was a time last year where a guy did his entire press conference, got taken from station to station to station. And then I happened to run into him, you know, in the middle of his kind of him doing all the different stations, and I told him, hey, you got traded. It was Thomas Bryant when he got traded to the Lakers last year, and he was stunned. He had no idea. So these guys, you know, they're, like you said, they're kind of being dragged along to all these different things, you know, obligations they have to do, and they don't even know really what's happening. You know, they lose track of who else is getting picked or what other teams are even on the clock, and if they've even been traded. So it is pretty crazy, and it's way different when you're there.
Mikal Bridges didn't know he was, you know, not going to be on the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, when we did our first lottery mock draft, well, man, that was so long ago now, it feels like, right?
Yeah.
We had expected Mikal Bridges to go there. That seemed to be the spot. They picked him. His mom was happy. He was happy. His mom obviously worked for the Sixers. So everything just seemed like that was such a great pick. NBA-ready player, 3-and-D prospect, probably the best one on the draft, at least the most NBA-ready one on the draft. Next thing you know, he's not on the team anymore. You know what I mean? He's doing interviews in a Philly hat, and he's on his way to a different team after that. I think he's going to, you know, have a good career either way. He's a guy that can definitely, you know, be a starter next season, which is something that I like about Mikal Bridges. But yeah, it's just so crazy to see that like this guy, you know, is probably getting blown up on his phone. Like, welcome back to Philly. You know, he went to Villanova. He won a national championship at Villanova, and then he's no longer even in Philly. I mean, even Josh Hart had a tweet where it's like, Mikal Bridges is about to be living at his mama's house next year, which is, which could have been accurate, but that's not the case anymore. He's a long way from Philadelphia now.
He was introduced to the business side of the NBA very quickly. And that's unfortunate. On the broadcast, it was so rough because his mom was tearing up and she said, "Go Sixers." And you could tell they really want him to be in Philly. And it's unfortunate that, it's one thing if the team doesn't pick you, then it's kind of like, oh, that would have been nice. But he basically thought that his dream came true and he got to be a Sixer for, 10 minutes basically. And then they traded him. So that's almost rougher than the team just not picking you.
It's also one thing if like Danny Ainge picks you and then trades you because it's going to happen. It's another thing if your team doesn't have a general manager or a president of basketball operations. And it's like, who even did that? Like, who even did that to me? That being said,
Brett Brown's a savage. He's cold-hearted, man.
For real. But that being said, Elton Brand too, a bunch of other guys, Brandon D. Williams. I actually do like that trade for Philadelphia because they got another prospect who's younger, which means his upside could be even higher. We almost kind of know who Mikal Bridges is going to be. Zaire Smith could be even better down the road because he's so young, amazing athlete, and they get another first-round pick, which means that even if Philadelphia gets to be really good, for a while, they'll still have even more assets, kind of like what Danny Ainge is doing over in Boston.
Yeah, I like it, but there's a part of me that doesn't like it very much. Like, I'm kind of split on it because I think Mikal Bridges would have been so perfect in Philly. I think they should be in win now mode, I think, because they're a team that could make the NBA Finals as early as next year. They could be a big player in free agency. They have the second most cap space. So going after a guy like Bridges that you can start right away and isn't kind of a project made a lot of sense to me. But I guess they're thinking still, long term. They're thinking of winning 3-4 years from now. And that's where, Zaire Smith, he has, more upside than a guy like Bridges, but he may take some time. They had the 2021 draft pick, I think, the first round pick. So, I mean, they're clearly thinking, more ahead than win now, which I guess in the Golden State Warriors, dynasty era does make some sense. They're probably looking ahead to the future and thinking, okay, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid will be in their prime then. Maybe Zaire Smith will turn into a star as well. So I think maybe we were, projecting them, who would be the best guy for them next year. Mikal is really the safer pick, I think. He's definitely going to be a good 3-and-D guy in the NBA, but can he be a star? I think they went for the home run hit instead of the safe hit,
Well, and they hedged their bet, too, by picking Landry Shamet, because Landry is another win-now guy who, is going to be a really good ball handler for them, especially when Ben Simmons is not on the court. I think he can kind of fill in for a lot of the minutes that T.J. McConnell had. Landry is also a lights-out shooter, one of the best jump shots among all prospects in the game. He's been working with the same shooting coach since he was in 5th grade. So that's something about Landry where it's just like, almost what you're getting. He played a few years in college. He played alongside Fred VanVleet. Ron Baker kind of definitely knows the drill about how to be a consummate professional. He's somebody who is a very cerebral player. I think he'll fit in really well with Brett Brown there because they kind of have a similar mindset Brett's coming from that Spurs background where, he learned from Pop. And I think that Landry is somebody who has got a ton of potential at the next level because he can do the things that you need to do. He's got a really good assist to turnover ratio. He's got a really good jump shot. And I think those are things that you're going to need to do to at least get minutes on the floor. You're not turning the ball over. You're getting assists to the big men, and you can shoot when you're open. That's something that Philadelphia really needs to do. So he's somebody that can fill in almost immediately.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It does make the trade a little bit easier to process just because he processed, no pun intended, because he can win now, he can shoot, he addresses some of those things that they would have gotten in Bridges. He's that kind of player where, he can contribute right away and knock down threes and do a lot of things. And then, Zaire Smith, for people who don't know about him, he's one of those guys that was really rising, in recent weeks because he did so well in workouts and teams were really intrigued by his wingspan and his upside. He's a guy that, kind of reminds me of a Ben Simmons in terms of his wingspan and athleticism. And, obviously their games are very different, but just if you look at his body and his wingspan and, his upside, it's pretty ridiculous. So if he could end up being a guy in the wing for them that becomes, a Brandon Ingram, obviously the the ceiling for him is like a Kevin Durant, but I never want to put that kind of comparison on a guy, in day one of their NBA career. But, that's what teams are looking for. If he can improve his shot and have that kind of length and his athleticism, he may be the best athlete in the draft. And then you get a first round pick on top of it for the future. I do understand the trade. It's just, I wanted Bridges there so bad.
Yeah, for personal reasons, because you're a good guy. But let's also, remember that Zaire Smith, he almost has some Zach LaVine DNA in him too. He's probably the best dunker in the draft, probably a future dunk contest winner, maybe even as soon as next year. If you look at kind of the trajectory recently of like Donovan Mitchell, coming in from a rookie to do it. So I think Zaire Smith's definitely somebody who, I've been training a lot with Travell Gaines, really working on his vertical. I had one of the top 3 verticals among all prospects at the Combine in Chicago this offseason. So he's definitely an amazing athlete, like you said.
The big thing for him is going to be developing that jump shot. That's what he's going to have to work on. If he can, really work on that and become a better shooter, he is going to have a long, successful career in the NBA. So we'll see if he can do that. Now, we want to get into winners and losers of the NBA draft, and I do want to say it's always kind of hard to do this the day after the draft. We don't know if a team made the right decision or the wrong decision, the right trade or the wrong trade. For a few years, typically, when these guys start, dipping into their potential and really developing into the players that we know they could be. So it is somewhat premature, I will admit that. But there are some things that we can judge just based on, our feelings about the prospect, the narrative. And we're actually not just looking at teams here. We're looking at individuals, teams, just different scenarios that played out. We're going to go through it that way and discuss winners and losers that way. So it is premature, but these are kind of our gut feelings and our instant reactions to what happened last night. So let's start with, we're going to go back and forth. We'll do one winner, one loser. So we'll each do that. So my first winner was Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. Now, the NBA had an agreement with reporters basically from the top outlets, ESPN, Yahoo, Turner Sports, saying that they wouldn't tip draft picks. And then I think it was like 6 hours before the draft, Shams tweeted out something about the top 2 picks. He said, DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley are going to go 1-2. And then Woj kind of countered that by tweeting out, here's what the top 6 picks are shaping up to look like. It's almost like they couldn't resist, which I found, really funny. And then when the draft actually started, Mark Stein, who was with ESPN for a long time, now he's with the New York Times, has a great newsletter. He started tipping picks, and you could go to his Twitter feed and see, not only was it picks 1 and 2, it was, every pick he was tipping it, and you could tell, at that point, Woj just ripped up the agreement. I was like, all right, let's do this. I'm going to start tipping picks. But he did it, the way he did it was why he's my winner. Every year, I feel like Woj finds a way to win the draft, by the way. His Twitter account is amazing. I know some people don't like tipping picks, and they feel like it ruins the broadcast, but he basically didn't say they picked the guy, that they were targeting the guy. And then he had, he spent the entire night finding different synonyms for target. So they strongly desire this guy. They're unlikely to resist this guy. They're lasered in on this guy. I thought that was awesome. He basically got around the rule and they can't punish him because they're just leaning toward that guy. But then sure enough, every single time he was right. They picked that guy. So I thought it was really cool that Woj found a way around that rule and was able to tip pick still. And I mean, you were there. Did you see Woj? Because I think it's so, I've seen him in a few different drafts now, and it's so interesting to watch this guy work. He literally has 2 cell phones on him. One time, I was on the shuttle from the media hotel over to the draft, and the guy, on one phone is talking, on one phone tweeting and texting. It's ridiculous to watch him work in person.
Yeah, I had a chance to actually meet Woj the other day at the Grand Hyatt Hotel here where the players were staying, and he said he's a big fan of HoopsHype, so it was pretty cool. That was the highlight of my week, man. It was awesome to meet the guy behind the legend and man behind the mask in a lot of ways. So he's amazing, man. He's probably the best NBA reporter to ever do it in terms of what he does. So it's truly phenomenal to see how connected he is, and be able to get a chance to actually meet him and talk to him was a real highlight. But yeah, man, I would say that my winner would be one of my winners anyway would be Donovan Mitchell. We spoke earlier about Robinson being on the broadcast. Donovan Mitchell was all over as well. He's given the draft analysis when Grayson Allen was picked. He played against Grayson Allen in college actually. So that was pretty cool. They're going to be teammates now. I think that it's pretty amazing that 1 year away from being drafted, not even as a particularly high pick, he's already running the show. There were a lot of fans in New York clamoring for him, chanting that he was Rookie of the Year, asking for signed balls and autographs, and take a picture with him from the stands. And he was obliging all of them. He didn't have to do any of that. Some people definitely did not. He went out of his way to do it. He seemed like one of those guys who just knows what it means to be a professional, doesn't get bothered. He seemed so poised and ready to be in that moment. Just kind of, we talk about dudes who are going to be broadcasters down the line. He definitely seems like one of those guys who could, step in this season and be in the booth or be on the floor doing an analysis. So shout out to Donovan Mitchell as always.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool. Donovan Mitchell actually went on Twitter and apologized to the people that he couldn't sign autographs for, which, I mean, he's a class act, like you said. To be out there signing autographs for as many people as possible, then going on Twitter to apologize to the few people he missed. I mean, he's just a great dude. And like you said, he's still charismatic. I think he could definitely have a career in broadcasting when all is said and done. But I'm looking forward to seeing him develop and, reach his full potential. This guy has superstar ability, I think, superstar potential for sure. And it's going to be a lot of fun watching him develop. Now, let's talk about our first loser of the draft. For me, it was actually the Sacramento Kings, and some people probably disagree with me here. But I just don't really like how Marvin Bagley fits in today's NBA. And with Luka Doncic available, I would have went with Luka. I just did an article where I talked to 12 players. Jorge and I did this article together, actually. I talked to 12 players that played against Luka overseas, and most of them raved about his game, said he has superstar potential. He's so hard to play against because he's a 6'8" point guard that almost always makes the right decision. That's what multiple guys stressed, that, he was a 19-year-old playing against guys that, had NBA experience. A lot of these guys had 10 years of experience on him. He was playing against, pros who are in their prime in terms of their skill set and their, body, their conditioning. And yet he still went out there and dominated, always made the right decision, whether it was scoring the ball or finding a teammate, for a basket. He's so confident and ahead of his years maturity wise. I just loved Luka, and I think I was very surprised that they passed on him to go with Marvin Bagley. And I think this is the kind of move that, could really hurt the Kings for years to come. If Bagley doesn't turn into a star and Luka does, they're going to be looking back on this and regretting it, because they scouted Luka multiple times. They met with him several times. He met with the owner. I mean, they seemed like it came down to Luka or Marvin, and they went with Marvin, and I disagree with that choice. I mean, obviously, I think Bagley can be an impact player, but I think in today's NBA, having a guy that can be a matchup nightmare, and I think Luka is going to be a good three-point shooter in the NBA, who can shoot the ball, who can create for others and handle the ball. I thought he would have been so, such a good pick and so good on that Sacramento Kings team. So I actually have them as one of my losers.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. And, I think, Dallas is going to end up probably playing him at the 4. It's going to be marvelous to see. I think he's a lot like Ben Simmons in that way, playing point forward. Also has a lot like James Harden or Manu Ginobili and a lot of the guys who've had a lot of success in the league. So I would definitely agree with you. I think one of my losers would be the New York Knicks. I don't like the picks that they made. I don't see it with Kevin Knox. Granted, there's a lot of times I've been wrong, but I think with best fit over best player available, Kevin Knox is somebody who obviously has a ton of potential, but also I think has a lot of bust potential too. And that's somebody who there's just something about it that doesn't really add up. I don't really get a good gut feeling from Kevin Knox, and I also don't really get a good gut feeling from Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson is somebody who blew off a lot of workouts, didn't play in college, didn't show up at the combine, has already changed agents. He's just somebody who obviously has a ton of potential too. But I think the Knicks could end up having one of the better drafts in this class. Obviously, I've been wrong before, but there's just something about those two picks in particular that just feels like both these guys could be nobodies in the next few years. I really do believe that. And even though there's a lot of potential for both of them, there's also something about it that just feels a little off.
I think with both of those picks, it's either going to work out really, really well and they're going to look really smart, or it's going to be, miserable and they're going to look really bad. I don't think there's much of an in-between there. I think both of those guys, they kind of, again, went for the home run and they may completely whiff and strike out. But I see what you're saying. Both of those guys, they went for the upside picks, clearly. And those guys have potential, but, I don't know if Kevin Knox can be a superstar in the NBA. And, there were guys on the board that, Michael Porter, for example, that all the fans were chanting for. If he's healthy, I think he's a better player than Kevin Knox. But the health concern is obviously, scary, and he may have to redshirt this entire, rookie season, just like Ben Simmons did. So that's kind of the risk there. I guess they may not have wanted to do that. I know a few teams were scared off because they didn't want to have their top pick be out the entire year. But yeah, I thought 9 was very high for Kevin Knox. I don't think either of us, maybe we had him going 14 in our first mock draft on the podcast here. But I think we had him falling out of the lottery. I think, he could be a star. He has that kind of potential, but I'm not sure if he can, reach his full potential. I don't know. I just don't think we've seen enough from him. That's kind of where I'm at, but we will see. But I tend to agree with you on that one too. Now let's go back to our winners. My next winner is the Atlanta Hawks. As I mentioned earlier, you predicted that they would actually go out and draft Trae Young and Kevin Huerter, so props to you there. But I love it. I think this is so smart. Not only did they get Trae Young and Kevin Huerter, they got Amari Spellman. And last year, these guys made a combined 256 three-pointers, and they shot a combined 39.2 from three-point range. And I think that, Travis Schlenk, he's doing a great job there of bringing in shooters and guys that are going to do well in today's NBA. For guys who don't know, Amari Spellman is a stretch four. I like these picks a lot. I think that Trae Young is really going to benefit from these selections because in college, he only had 19 uncontested three-pointers, and he made 14 of them. But that kind of shows you this guy was, having to shoot with a defender in his face almost every single time. He made all these threes, and most of them were contested. The fact that he's going to have so many shooters around him, not only is going to give him more space and make things easier for him offensively, it can also bring out his playmaking skills and his court vision and those things that we've all, kind of raved about. Him as a point guard, not only is he a great shooter, he's a great ball handler and facilitator. So having other shooters around him is going to bring that out too. So I think, you're going to put some talent around Trae Young. That's really going to help him. They're going to have a lot of shooters next year. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So I really like this draft a lot for them.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man. And I really like Taurean Prince. He's a great foundational piece for the Hawks as well. Somebody who made a lot of three-pointers last season for Atlanta. I like Collins too. He's a good big, serviceable big, kind of good fit for the NBA. Can run up and down the court. Obviously, Travis Schlenk is somebody who came over from the Golden State Warriors, so it's no surprise to see him building a little bit of that Golden State DNA here in Atlanta. And I was really glad to have gotten that prediction right because even though there's a lot of bust potential with the picks as well, I think that there's a lot of upside here where they could definitely get a fit that ends up being a really good long-term investment for the Hawks because of their three-point shooting. So I really like the stat that you mentioned about uncontested threes. You watched Oklahoma last year and you saw Trae Young being the entire offense, yet still leading the league in assists. Like it was insane to see Trae Young decide to distribute so often and distribute well. He's a really good passer with a lot of great court vision. So definitely shout out to the Hawks. It's a huge winner from the draft. And I would say that the Spurs are a winner for me too. They get Lonnie Walker, who I think is somebody who Greg Popovich is absolutely going to love. Lonnie Walker fell. I know that I'd reported earlier in the day that Spurs might have to trade up to get him. They ended up getting him without having to give anybody up. They ended up getting a good big man from USC as well, and Shamizi Me too. And I really like this draft from San Antonio. Usually, if they're spotting somebody, there's something about them that's pretty special, and I think you can definitely see it in the energy from Lonnie. I think I talked to guys around the league yesterday, some people from the league office as well. And basically, I mean, the impression that I'm getting about Lonnie Walker because there's something about his energy, something about his poise, something about his just his vibe that feels really special. Regardless of whether or not that means he's a special player, he's certainly a special person. He's such a young guy. The one thing that I was really looking for Lonnie is how he's going to be able to develop his shot at the next level. And that's something that he got in a perfect situation for him. I'd say Lonnie Walker is very much a winner here because the Spurs shooting coach is going to do a great job developing a three-point game.
Yeah, Chip England is known for that. I mean, he helped Kawhi Leonard, obviously. He helped so many other guys throughout the years. He really did fall to a great situation. Lonnie was starting to shoot it pretty well in workouts recently from what we were hearing. And to have Chip England now, help him get that shot down, it's going to help him so much. And I think Lonnie and the Spurs are both winners, as you mentioned. I think that's a great fit for him. And he could be a special player. He's a guy that is a lottery talent that, there were some concerns medically, so he slipped a little bit. There was also, I think he was more one of those potential type picks, an upside pick. He's not going to really help right away, I don't think. I think he may take a year or two before he can really be a significant contributor, but I think we're going to see the Spurs kind of shift to rebuilding mode. That's what I kind of anticipate, so it makes a lot of sense, and I like Lonnie there a lot. Let's go to our next loser. I actually have the Los Angeles Clippers as one of my losers. I wasn't a huge fan of their draft. I'll say this. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he has a lot of upside, but I'm not high on the Jerome Robinson pick. Everyone else in recent weeks has been going nuts about him and, putting him higher on mock drafts, and he was rising, and I get it now. I mean, they were right because he did go in the lottery, but personally, I don't see it. I wouldn't have picked him if I were the Clippers there. I think, Michael Porter Jr., I probably would have went with him. I think he has a lot more upside. Jerome Robinson, I think he could be a good player, but I'm not sure he'll ever be a great player. So I wasn't a huge fan of that pick. And also, when I look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't know what he'll become. I think he could be a bust potentially. He is a guy that, people love his frame and his wingspan and those things, but I don't know. I think both of these picks, the Jerome Robinson one, I think was almost too safe of a pick because, you're going to get a good player, but is he really going to be great? Is he going to be that much of a difference maker? I don't really see it. And then I do think the Shai pick was, a pick to try to go for a guy that could become a star, but I'm just not that high on him. So other people may disagree with me. I know that Jerome and Shai have a lot of fans, especially among, draft experts, things like that, but I just didn't really like those picks. I thought there were better options there.
Yeah, definitely. But, the thing that I keep hearing, though, is that Jerome Robinson was a Jerry West pick, which is, surprising because I know that Steve Ballmer really liked Michael Porter Jr. There are a lot of guys who probably felt really close with Doc. But at the end of the day, I think they went with Jerry West, who does not have as much in name in the organization, but certainly in power. So if Jerry West sees something in a guard, that's somebody that I feel pretty comfortable in too. And I definitely like the Jerome Robinson pick more than others. I was not surprised at all. I'd written earlier in the day that the Clippers and the Bucks were the two teams that liked him, but I kind of thought they would have traded down if they wanted to get him. So I'll say that a winner here would be, or sorry, we're doing losers, aren't we?
Yeah, loser. Yeah.
My first thought right now is to go with Trae Young's shorts, man.
No, you should. That was definitely a losing moment for him.
He looked like a UPS man. I kept seeing a bunch of memes like that. I did not like that look at all. There were so many dudes who looked so good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with the tablecloth themed outfit for his suit. That was such a good look. Lonnie Walker looked amazing in the all white. And the floating hat. He called it iconic. He called it iconic afterwards, which I think was great. There's a lot of guys who look, NBA fashion's great, and man, the shorts. That's a loser for me. That's going to be a no for me, dog.
No, I agree with you. Whenever I saw that, I'm like, what are you doing, man? And he justified it. He was like, oh, I saw no one had ever done that in NBA history, so I wanted to be a first. But maybe there's a reason no one had done it before, buddy. I mean, I'm not sure that was a good look. But that's okay. he's going to be absolutely fine, have an amazing career. Somehow Trae Young made my winner list and my loser list because of those shorts. I agree with you. But speaking of apparel and, clothing and, NBA gear, my next winner is actually Puma. Shout out to Puma, man. They really went hard after NBA draft prospects, and they have a really nice class this year. DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley. So Puma, not Nike, not Adidas, not Under Armour. Puma got the number 1 and number 2 picks in this draft. They also got 2 guys that have extremely high upside, could become stars later. Michael Porter Jr., Zaire Smith. They added Jay-Z as their creative director, and then they have started adding veterans already. Rudy Gay signed a deal with them, so he's going to be with Puma as well. And I think this is just the start for Puma. Expect them to go after more veterans who are on expiring shoe deals or who are already shoe free agents. It seems like they have a ton of money to spend, and they have this vision, and they're doing a great job right now. So keep an eye on Puma.
Who do you think is next, Alex? John Wall?
He could be. I'm not positive. This is a question for Nick DePaula, but more than me. But I don't know. I just think they're going to go all in, and clearly they have. If they're able to compete and get guys like Ayton and Bagley, the budget they're working with is serious. To get a number 1 pick over the Nike and Adidas, type companies is really impressive. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think they have to go. I think the next veteran will be, an all-star caliber player. I do think that's their goal. If you can, enter the season with, this strong rookie class, some strong veterans, and then have an all-star too, they're going to be in great shape. So I like the direction they're going, and it kind of came out of nowhere. This is a company that hasn't produced a basketball shoe in decades, and then now they just showed up and said, all right, we're going to come back into the basketball game, and we're going to sign some of the top prospects, some veterans, and bring in Jay-Z. It was a really, really cool rollout, a really cool move, in my opinion.
I'd say winner is the Holiday family. They now have 3 kids in the NBA. That's amazing. Really great job there. 2 guys from UCLA, 1 from Washington, really repping the Pac-12 very well. I'm super impressed with the Holiday family for being potentially starting caliber point guards and shooting guards for 3 teams in the league. Man, that's amazing too. I mean, you got Indiana, you got New Orleans, you got Chicago. You've got so much of Middle America, the middle of America represented by the Holiday family. I saw earlier that this is like a more successful version of the Ball family now. So it's pretty cool to see that they were able to be able to enjoy that moment together as a family. Having 3 kids in the NBA and then say that the best of all of them is actually their sister. It's pretty amazing. I'm pretty inspired by them. Great parenting there for sure, man. So I'm really stoked on the Holiday family.
Yeah, great parenting, great genes. I mean, that's incredible. You don't see that often. So props to them. That's a great winner. I think let's focus on losers again. We talked about Mikal Bridges. He was on my loser list just because, again, you mentioned it. His mom worked as the VP of Human Resources for the Sixers. He played at Villanova. He thought he was going to be there. It didn't work out. We already hit on that, though, so I'm going to move on. I had him as a loser, but I want to focus on the Portland Trailblazers. And people may completely disagree with me here. But Anthony Simons is a guard who just turned 19 years old. He spent the last year at IMG Academy as a post-grad student. He basically spent a post-grad year there. So, but he technically was, coming right from high school to the NBA. I don't think anyone disagrees with the project label. He's definitely going to be a project, someone that you're going to have to invest time in. And he's a backcourt player. He's 6'3". Some people have said he may be, more of he was a scorer at IMG, so maybe he's more of a shooting guard. Maybe he can play point guard, but this is a guy that I just have a hard time, with this pick. He could be a great player. I want to say that. He has tons of upside. Again, he just turned 19 years old. But if you're the Portland Trailblazers and you already have Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, and you're trying to compete pretty soon, going after a project player that's going to take multiple years to develop and going after a position that you already are clearly stacked in, their backcourt, is arguably one of the best in the NBA. It's just hard for me to believe that they went with a guard, and not only that, a combo scoring guard. That it's the last need of theirs, if you ask me. So I thought that was kind of strange. The fact that he's a guard and the fact that he's such a project, I just wasn't a big fan of that pick. I know Neil O'Shea said he tried to trade it and he was trying to bring an impact veteran, and that's what I would have liked to see them do. I think that would have been much better for the team because I think they are more focused on competing in the near future more than competing, years out from now. But to go from saying we want an impact veteran to picking one of the youngest guys in the draft that may need the most time to develop and is such a big project is sort of a surprise for me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Maybe it's a signal that CJ McCollum's not in their long-term plans.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
But, it really makes you think. Yeah, but, Neil O'Shea had a really ridiculous comment afterwards saying, players in this range aren't always expected to contribute right away when some of the most recent picks in that range have been like Jordan Bell and, guys who have really made a difference in the last few years at the NBA level. So it's just that's a ridiculous comment. I think Neil O'Shea is a lot of the problem in Portland, not so much Terry Stotts, not so much the backcourt. I think that, giving big deals to guys has been a bigger issue and drafting wrong guys in the past too has been a bigger issue than some of the things that are getting blamed over there in Portland. Let's see, we are on to losers. The Raptors, man. I think that the Raptors have kind of been somebody who needed to make a difference, needed to make a change. Kind of were floating the idea of moving in and drafting, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's even from Toronto, or from Ontario rather, and they didn't do that, man. They didn't do that. They didn't get anybody. They had a completely nothing draft, and I know that that's something that was expected in a way, but also it's just you're trying to make a difference, trying to make a change. You guys have gotten swept 2 years in a row in the playoffs. This is an opportunity to bring on a rookie contract, and they weren't able to do it. So I would definitely say Toronto, firing their coach, it might have been one of their best assets, and then not actually making changes to their roster yet. It's just what is it that you think is going to make a change, man?
Yeah, it is somewhat confusing, and I think when you look at Toronto with the cap situation they're in, it is kind of difficult to imagine a way for them to improve. It's not like they can go out and spend a ton of money on a big name free agent. So that's where, improving through the draft, it could be a really good avenue for them. Otherwise, they're going to have to make trades and, move some of their players. So I was kind of surprised they didn't get involved either last night. I thought they would try to, bring on a guy on a rookie contract because that's, one of the few avenues they have to improve other than, hoping that there can be some minimum type contract guys out there that they could bring in that could be impact players, but that's pretty hard to find. So I thought they would have been involved yesterday too. My next winner, actually my last winner, let's wrap up, was Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson going to the Dallas Mavericks. I love the Dallas Mavericks draft. We kind of hit on this a little bit earlier when we talked about the Atlanta Hawks making that trade with Dallas and the fact that Sacramento passed on Luka Doncic, but I have Dallas as one of my winners. I think they did a fantastic job. Some people were saying, oh, why didn't you get a big man? That was crazy. And Rick Carlisle straight up said, we have free agency. Free agency's only, a week and a half away. We're going to address big man and free agency. They have plenty of money to spend. They also have draft or trade chips too. And there's been some talk about, could they be a suitor for a guy like Hassan Whiteside or another big man that could be available? But you look at their draft, Jalen Brunson in the second round, I think is a really good pick. I like him a lot. I think he can help them. And Luka Doncic, you know how I feel about him. I already kind of spelled it out. I think he could end up being a really good player, a star player. He could be one of the best players in this draft, if not the best. What he did overseas this year was unprecedented. I think Shane Larkin and Kyle Wiltshire and a few guys I interviewed in that piece put it best. Shane Larkin said you kind of compare it to if a senior in high school just started dominating the NBA. And Kyle said if this season would have been crazy impressive for a veteran in their prime, for a 19-year-old to do what he did in the EuroLeague is just insane. So I think they really won the draft by being able to make that trade and get Luka. I think they're one of the strong winners for me.
I would definitely say I agree. Jalen Brunson's a national champion, somebody who's won, at all levels, somebody that I liked a lot. Definitely gives me Fred VanVleet vibes. But my biggest winner is going to be, or my other biggest winner is going to be the Golden State Warriors. Once again, they got somebody who's a win now player in Jacob Evans. He's somebody who I really loved speaking with. He's one of my favorite guys I got a chance to interview. Super smart guy, really good basketball IQ. I know that when Draymond Green saw him defend during workouts, they were like, that guy fits in with our system immediately. Can shoot threes, which is amazing. The fact that Golden State just got another wing who can shoot is crazy because, I mean, I know that literally off the bench, Patrick McCaw was not a great shooter, and that was a big weakness for them. So they added another guy who can score the ball in Golden State, somebody who is really hungry, won a lot of games at Cincinnati, did well in the tournament. Jacob Evans is somebody who you should bookmark because he sees a lot of himself in Jimmy Butler, and he wants to be the best player in this draft. I know a lot of guys say it, but you hear him talk, and to me, it literally sounds real. Jacob Evans, I think, has such a high ceiling. Reminds me a lot, character-wise, of Jordan Bell. Just a nice kid who really tried to make something of himself through basketball, and played a few years in college. Has been around the game. Definitely somebody who I like as a person quite a bit, as a player quite a bit.
Yeah, yesterday, whenever they made that draft pick, I tweeted out your article and, said that this could be the biggest steal in the draft potentially. When I had Cole Zwicker on to do our NBA draft preview, he had Jacob Evans as the number 15 player on his big board. He feels like he is a winning player, makes winning plays. Was Jacob the one that was in Golden State on the day of the parade for his workout?
Jacob Evans was. He was somebody who just kept telling me how excited he was, excited to be around it, excited to see the energy. He wants to be in a parade too. He's somebody who really wants to win, wants to make a difference on the next level. He worked out twice with Golden State. That was the only thing he met with twice, which I reported. And he absolutely has that mentality. So shout out to the Warriors. They got another winning player.
Yeah, I love that quote from him. He basically said, that was so motivating seeing that parade. I want to be in a parade myself. I'm a winner. I won at Cincinnati. I've won at every stage of my life. I want to continue that. Whatever team I go to, I want to make sure we have a parade very soon. Well, Jacob, it's looking pretty good. I mean, barring something crazy, it seems like you're going to get that parade at some point here in the next, year or two potentially. So yeah, I mean, I love the pick too. I think he is going to fit them perfectly. And just like Jordan Bell, people are going to look at this and say, how did the Warriors get him? Such a steal. But I think it's going to be because he's such a great fit in their system. And, he's a perfect Warriors player, honestly, the way you look at his game. A great, 3-and-D, two-way guy. I just think he's going to be great. I like the pick a lot. My last loser is the New York Knicks fans. You already said the Knicks because you weren't crazy about their picks. The Knicks fans, man, I mean, especially the kid that hated on the Kristaps Porzingis pick, you think you would learn and be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't judge a guy, when it's a potential guy, and maybe the team knows better. Maybe I shouldn't boo. But yesterday, again, they don't pick Michael Porter Jr. They pick Kevin Knox, and he's up there screaming and pointing at the stage and saying, what are you doing? He was all angry. The fans were booing. You captured it on video on Twitter. I mean, Knicks fans, I think it's almost becoming like the Philadelphia Eagles at the NFL draft every year where, no matter how good the pick is or who the pick is, they're going to boo. Michael Porter Jr., yeah, he could be a great player, but he could have back injuries, back issues that limit him and really don't let him ever become even a rotation player. We don't know. We don't know how serious this is. Teams were scared enough to not to pick him for a reason. So I just think Knicks fans need to be a little more open-minded. I get the frustration. You've been through some rough organization decisions in the last decade that have made you, think the organization's always wrong. But just be a little open-minded and maybe not greet every single player that comes in to your organization, the first minute they're there with just nothing but boos and hatred. That's not a great start for a guy when he's coming to your team, especially when he ends up developing into a star like Porzingis did. It ends up being motivational, but that's not a great way to welcome a guy. I mean, you don't want that. You don't want to be that known for that. So I think they need to be a little more open-minded and give guys a chance.
Yeah, it's trash behavior. I would say that loser for me is every team that passed on Raleigh Hawkins. Couldn't believe he went undrafted. That was another guy who just felt like a two-way player, really great defender. He looked so good at the combine. He had a game with like 5 blocks, and he's a wing. I don't understand. I don't understand it at all.
I know that he's playing summer league with the Raptors, or training camp, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be on the Raptors roster. It means, he could still end up somewhere else. But man, that's somebody who I really liked a lot. High character dude. Somebody who has come back from injury and has proven that he could play with somebody like DeAndre Ayton pretty well. That was baffling to me.
That is a big surprise, and maybe that is where Toronto gets their impact guy from this draft. Maybe as an undrafted free agent, he steps in, does well in summer league, does well in training camp, and makes the roster. We shall see. But thank you so much for helping me break down the 2018 NBA draft, Bryan. Like I said before, winners and losers, we don't know for sure until a few years from now, but it's always fun to speculate and give our thoughts on the draft picks and the moves that were made. So, Bryan, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
If you guys want to listen to other episodes of the HoopsHype Podcast, be sure to check out iTunes, Audio Boom, Stitcher, anywhere your favorite podcast can be found. And until next time, thanks for listening.